Small business is neglected the most when it comes to not only automation, but the benefits that they could reap from IT world. The potential, the dollar potential is absolutely phenomenal. It's huge. Putting an automation in place should be done in the same mindset as you are hiring a virtual employee. The difference is that you cannot really interview a virtual employee, but you need to know how good that particular assistant is. It's easy to put something together, record a video, make some promises that are not substantiated. Have you seen a single video that shows the outcome? I haven't. My hope is that they will start thinking about automation as the product rather than their time as the product. But until there is a simpler way where you just install that automation just like you install a product from an app store. You configure it and you just don't even need to think what kind of blocks are inside. It's just there. I think that's where it's going. At least that's where we're pushing it with Flowrun. When you hire a mid-level or even a junior level employee, you have an idea about the end goal, right? You validate the fact that they are smart, that they're good with writing or creating images as a designer, whatever, right? But you're really focused on the fact that the end goal that you have in mind will be achievable with that person or the team that you're putting together. I think when you hire, putting an automation in place should be done in the same mindset as you are hiring a virtual employee. The difference is that you cannot really interview a virtual employee. So what do? You look at the things that others have managed to accomplish with that employee. You can do a trial, but the trial either has to be moderated, it's like it generates content and you have to moderate, or you look at what the same agent was able to accomplish in either the same or other industries, and you say, okay, this is either perfect or good enough.
Yeah. I guess if, let's say you have like 4 different possible agents that all are promising the same outcome, but they're from different vendors or creators. And if you're thinking about it like a hire, you still want to pick the right one. So the differentiating factor there could be either price or usability or like reliability, I guess, or both. Yeah. So in that case, you don't know what the usability is like if you're just looking at their outcomes.
You just have to give it a try.
Yeah, so I think agents as a service where you just get a freemium kind of where you can maybe test or something. It's like agents are replacing SaaS, especially the micro softwares, because for a long time there were like little softwares that did very specific, like the one that posts for you, or there's one that will help with copywriting. All of these
you type in a piece of content and it just goes and it's distributed everywhere.
Yeah.
Reposts to Facebook, to Instagram, to X, right? You're talking about that, like the repost.
Yeah.
I remember those.
Yeah. So I feel like agents will slowly swallow those up because if they're able to talk to everything on your behalf, you don't really need to sign up for 100 different, like having a tech stack is exhausting. If you have like 50 different subscriptions to different softwares, it's a lot.
Absolutely. I think focusing on small business is the one that is neglected the most when it comes to not only automation, but the benefits that they could reap from IT world. A lot of small business owners that I know, when I ask about, the kind of software that they use, it's always this archaic, super old system or something that someone that they know just put together and they just pray that it continues to work. Yet it's the backbone of this economy, right? So I think the potential, the dollar potential is absolutely phenomenal. It's huge. And they know that in order to survive, because it's a highly competitive market, no matter where you look, in order to survive, you need to have your voice, you need to start developing your followers, you need to expand your reach, you need to get new customers, you need to get noticed. How do you do this if you're not present in the virtual world? But yeah, as you said, looking at the result is fine. That's still a leap of faith. But you need to know how good that particular assistant is. And then they will be different. Like, for example, with the content writer, the smart content writer assistant. The one that I envision is we'll have a content calendar. Because you cannot just it's one thing to have an assistant that does daily Twitter posts or LinkedIn posts on random subjects that are still related to the industry you're in. But if those posts are organized and they are in tune with what's going on in the world today that is related to the industry you're in, because you want to have posts that provoke conversations, or you want to have content that is generated that is related to something that is meaningful for your business, right? Like, for instance, if you run a small dealership, apparently like Labor Day and Independence Day in America are like big deals to buy a car, because I think everybody gets a day off so they can go shopping for a car. I remember that SNL sketch where, what's the name of the stand-up guy? He was George Washington talking to his soldiers.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's fantastic. And he was talking about, how things are going to be different in America. And he says that we're going to have Labor Day and it's going to be a holiday. And so he's like, so what are we going to do on this day? Like, buy a mattress, of course. And, all the mattress businesses, they have like their biggest day around Labor Day, which doesn't make any sense, but that's how things are. So if you run a mattress company, of course, you want to start tweeting like crazy a week before Labor Day, announcing all your deals. And you want your assistant, the one that you get from AI, to know this, right? Otherwise, it's just not as good for your specific business.
What's the way to analyze or compare agents actually? Like, if you're on the marketplace and you're looking at them, how do you know what to pick without getting like married to the wrong one, so to speak, or hiring the wrong person?
It's tough because if you run small to medium-sized business and you never had a content writer and you just don't really know what's going to make your potential customers tick, how they're going to find you, how to stay relevant, you will not know how to ask questions that matter. Ideally, you either try, but it needs to be like a time-based trial where you experiment with the dynamics of content generation in relationship to things that are happening. You announce a new product, a new variety, a new whatever, new service. You want your smart content writer to know about this, to start talking about it, right? So you have to somehow influence your assistant, your automated assistant, to generate content in relationship to things that are happening in the company. So one thing that you could do is you ask the developer of the automation, hey, I see you can automatically post to X or to LinkedIn, but how will it know that we have a new service being released? How can I inform it that for this time frame, the posts need to be thematic to the release of a new product or service, or a special that we're running, or the fact that we're going to be producing 3x more product around Christmas holidays because we know there will be more customers, but we want to start talking about it. How will it know? You just hope to hear the right answer, because if you don't, you know that that's just not there. I have not seen a single video on TikTok or posts on Reddit where people that talk about the automations that they create address this. And it's primarily two things that they talk about: content creation, automated content creation, and automatic BDRs, business development rep, right? So it's like you hire, a virtual sales guy, or you hire virtual marketing.
I've literally Googled and found whatever AI SDRs or BDRs or whatever. And when I read that this, first of all, they're often promising a lot and then kind of vague in their description of what it entails. And then when I actually look at it, it's not actually doing everything, you know what I mean? Like, it's still requiring some degree of involvement, and it's not even guaranteed to help, because if a lot of them will just say it'll draft a response. So there were ones that saying it doesn't send an email back to the prospect, it'll draft the response for the prospect, and then the person has to send it. Okay. But there's not even a promise that it's trained on some sort of model of your business to be able to respond relevantly. Is it just going to be like, all of these questions are, I feel quite valid. Like, how do I know it's not just going to give some generic response? And there's no way of validating that. And anyone can make this basic thing of like, oh, it's going to reply to an email and create a draft to be put in your inbox for someone else to send. And then they're packaging it with this flashy, like, whatever generated graphic of like a sales agent that's named Ava who's going to do everything for, like, it's so crazy to me. It's like a black box with a pretty package, and you don't know what's going on there.
I'm on a bunch of communities in school related to automation. And every single community, the organizer is just pitching some kind of solution. And they are, as I said, in one of these two categories: sales or marketing, like content development or business development. Let's step aside from the actual automation implementation and ask our question. And if someone were to create an automation for a very smart and intelligent salesperson, I would assume that the person who creates this automation either has exposure to like top-notch sales talent or have that talent themselves. Because otherwise, they will be just like, hypothetically, what should salesperson do? More than likely, I don't know for the fact, but by looking at the profiles of those people who run those communities on LinkedIn, okay, I suspect the way they got started with the pitch of those automations is they actually asked ChatGPT, what should an automation for a salesperson look like? And then started modeling it in N8 and Zapier and anywhere else. Which to me, the fallout of this is that this actual automation as a virtual salesperson is going to be complete and utter crap.
Yeah. I think the common thread I'm noticing is that all of these automations that are being pitched are created with the idea in mind that it's easy to pitch and easy to sell rather than good for solving a problem, because 99% of these have never actually been used. I'm convinced that no one's who created this automation created it because it was a problem they had and they were trying to fix it. They created it for some hypothetical scenario that they could easily pitch to someone because it sounds easy to sell. Like, oh, this will do all the work for you. But they've never used it in that workflow to see if it actually works properly.
What do you think their business model is? Like all those people.
So I'm imagining they're like, okay, let me find a niche that needs automation. Goes on ChatGPT, what problems do they have? They have like content creators need help with content. Okay, what automation would be best for them? Here you go. Okay. And then it's like, okay, can you tell me instructions for how to make that automation in N8N? And then they build it. And then they make a video saying, I use ChatGPT and N8N to make automation that made me $10,000 with no coding experience and nothing. And then that goes viral because everyone loves the idea of doing something without any experience.
I think that's their opening pitch. I think there's more to it, right? I think they mastered the tool to a degree. I don't want to question how good they are with N8N, Zapier, Flowrun, or whatever. Some of them may be very good. They may have bright engineering minds. They may think through the problems. I don't want to disregard that. So they have made an investment into the learning of a tool. So how do they capitalize on that investment? Because selling a template with the promise that it generated 10K will not generate a whole lot of money. So they basically create content that will generate leads for them to provide consulting services for an implementation of specific automations for whoever showed interest.
But it's weird because if I was a business owner looking for someone to help me with my very specific problem and I'd see these types of videos, I wouldn't take them as seriously as someone who shows the outcomes they got for businesses.
Have you seen a single video that shows the outcome? I haven't.
No.
I haven't.
But it's weird because in every other business model, all you see are use cases or case studies of here's how we got this customer this result. That's what people lead with. That's naturally what social proof people trust. And yet maybe it's because the space is so new that like it hasn't had enough time for people to really get those results yet. And I don't know, like really create case studies. Although I don't really believe that. I think if you really made an automation, you could have just demonstrated what it does. But I also think it's like the idea of, well, I know how to use this tool, therefore I'm qualified to make an automation, where there's the other side of the coin, which is I need to be able to think critically about the actual needs of this business and the problems they're solving and what is the most effective way of doing that rather than what's the easiest way for me to create a video on an automation?
From my personal experience, very subjective, but I think relatable, is that creating a universal automation, the one that can apply to a multitude of different businesses, solving one problem, say content generation. It is hard because there are quite a few variables that you have to account for, which translates to complexity that inherently would need to be built into that automation. But then once you do it, you actually created a product, a reusable product that multiple business owners can benefit from, right? So, but that goes against to how those people who are pitching automations on TikToks and YouTube, that goes against to how they make money. They make money by selling their consulting services, by selling their billable hours. So they are the product. It's not what they create is the product. They are the product that they sell.
I feel like they'd make more money, though, if they demonstrated alignment with the outcomes of the business rather than the deliverable.
Sure, but that requires a lot more initial investment, because here, creating a universal automation is one thing. Secondly, you would need to productize it, right? You would need to create some kind of additional systems that can be configured to tune it, that provide analysis that is specific to this business for how well it works.
With how many people are starting to learn these tools, eventually there's going to be a lot of automations that claim to do the same thing or claim to have the same outcome. In that case, your differentiating factor is the actual outcome, the quality of the outcome, and like the usability. And to do that, you have to either be the person who had this problem and it was fixing it, or works with someone who has this problem and it needs to fix it, so that you can see how well it works. So I think now it's fine to just make something more generic because there isn't a lot of option out there. Like there's not a lot of alternative. And if you see a new automation, people will be like, oh, that's great. Let me try it, you know? But when you start seeing like 50 of the same one, that's where I think people will start investing more into the user testing side of the automation. Like, how good is this one compared to this one? Why is it better? Maybe even workflow, like auditing the logic to be able to see where things go wrong in the process, or why it chose to do something that way, because a lot of like LLMs still hallucinate and maybe you don't know why or whatever. Like, I think the transparency is going to be a big influencing factor when people choose to purchase stuff, in terms of what is it actually doing and how do I know if it's working. But I think that requires all the effort that it's much harder to put in now when it's so new and it's like easy to just put something together and get attention.
Exactly, because you just nailed it. It's easy to put something together, record a video, make some promises that are not substantiated. No one's going to be verifying and asking for hardcore references, right? And the simple fact that a single video may have thousands of views, for someone who is looking for an animation, could be the validation. This guy's blowing up. He really must know what he's talking about. I'm going to contact him and see if he can build something for me. Mm-hmm. So for now, that works.
Yeah.
But until there is a simpler way that comes along where you just install that automation just like you install a product from an app store. Mm-hmm. You configure it and you just don't even need to think what kind of blocks are inside. It's just there. You installed a virtual assistant. I think that's where it's going. At least that's where we're pushing it to with Flowrun.
You know what'd be cool? And I'm thinking of it in the long term. If you could install, let's say, a virtual agent that does stuff for you, but it's like more specialized to whatever thing you purchased it for. Maybe there's like plugins for your agent. Let's say you bought an agent for this one business you have because it's more vertical specific, but now you have another business. Maybe you could just get plugins for your functionality for your agent, so you don't have to, because maybe it learned a lot about you and how you work and blah, blah, blah. You don't want to retrain the next one. So you could just add knowledge to this agent and it's like your baseline and you just like give it more knowledge.
It makes perfect sense. Exactly. Yeah. Ideally, if you created a smart and AI-based system, every new iteration of that or really iteration of that system needs to be based on the knowledge that it has already obtained. And so that's how it will start getting incrementally smarter and smarter.
Like if every AI agent that you buy is just not a separate agent, but it's just added to your bigger agent, like it's like a sub agent to your
Right.
larger collection.
Absolutely. Like every business has its own knowledge base, which is evolving based on what customers ask and what they share and the things that they do and how you solve specific problems. The better off you are in accumulating this knowledge and leveraging it in the automations, then the AI-based automations that you create, the better off you will be in the market position that you have.
Yeah, like so if I'm in ChatGPT, I have like a few chats that I are like sacred because I've spent so much time telling it what I want, like in terms of the formatting of the answer, and I've given it so many like so much information. It's not really RAG, but it's like kind of, because it's got some stuff in there, but it's like, whatever.
It has a larger conversation window.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then there's the mini GPTs you can actually upload stuff to, and it's a bit more databasey, but it's still not perfect. So what's the best format then to hold your database of information on your business or on yourself so that you don't have to keep repeating yourself every single time? Is there like a way you can just put everything in one place and then give it to the next agent?
There are several approaches. What you have in your ChatGPT chats, the ones that you just keep coming back to for specific questions that you ask. Another approach is the whole RAG thing. And the way this works is that for any bit of knowledge that you have, you go through a process that is called embeddings. So you basically vectorize that knowledge. What it does is you send this content to AI, and it comes back with just a bunch of numbers that really represent that knowledge, your content. And you store those numbers in specialized vector stores. There is a bunch of them. All major database providers offer vector storage. Mongo, Atlas, RDS, you can store it in memory, doesn't matter. Once it is stored in those vector stores, you don't need AI anymore to run searches in them, because there is a well-known algorithm that all those vector stores implement where you can do so-called similarity search. So you basically, because AI already did its job of just like linking things together. So you go to your Mongo and you run a search, and it comes back with bits of content where whatever you're looking for is found. So this way you identified bits of knowledge that is relevant. Okay. And then you can put it all together, all that knowledge, and then send to AI with a larger question of what you're doing, of what you want. This way you don't have to upload all of your knowledge base to AI every time. You just keep accumulating it, and you vectorize it, and then searching it first, and then you send whatever found to AI with the actual question. And that's kind of the essence of RAG.
Is there I've kind of heard like agentic RAG. Is that where you can get an agent to actually decide, like instead of, I don't know if uploading is the right term, but could it just not access that database in any other way to use it on your behalf to just search for what's necessary and decide what to search for?
Sure. So you can establish a, let's call it a protocol with how you communicate with AI. Whenever you send a query to AI, and I'm not talking about the ChatGPT chat window, we're talking about programmatic access in the system. So whenever you send a query to AI, you can configure your system and let LLM know, or pre-configure it, that there are some additional sources of information available that LLM can tap into to get specific data. And then a smart agent would basically have those tools at its disposal along with LLM in order to accomplish a task that you put in front of it.
Like I'm imagining if I wanted like a consultant on my own business, let's say I have a database of information on maybe my services, my target audience, the research I've done, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe there's also a library of content that I've like published. So maybe it's my posts, my blog articles, whatever. Then maybe there's a library of content that is in the same niche and is performing well by other creators, like the top performing posts in my niche that could be good references for my own potential content. So then I'm like, okay, based on everything you know about my business, help me come up with ideas for XYZ. And then would it be able to, like, I guess, pick out the right information based on my preferences for content styles, and then knowing also what I've previously posted so it doesn't give me stuff I've already said, and then also make sure that it's aligned with what my business is like.
The short answer is the longer answer, it really depends how it is structured. So for example, but you can configure your LLM AI queries to say that whenever you start thinking about any kind of problem or question that I ask you, use these tools at your disposal. And one of the tools could be a sort of a query into your existing content system to determine, most popular content, the one that gets the most views, or the most engaging content, the one that gets the most comments, the most lead generation content, the one that basically leads to inquiries going on through your website or whatever means that you use. And then whenever you ask AI a question, to generate something, AI can decide that it will go back to your system and say, give me the most engaging articles, or give me the most lead generation with the highest CTRs, right? The system returns that information to AI. Now it is equipped with information to make a better decision about the query that you sent.
I see.
So it is not going to be just like spitting out whatever it can based on the parameters that you provided. It's going to be a more informative decision of why it generated what it generated, based on information that is ever developing in your own, let's say, blog system.
I see. So if I had the question of generate 3 new articles that are well performing for my blog, it should be able to pull out from my library so it knows, like, this is the types of blog articles I like. Then these are the ones I've already posted, so let's maybe stay away from those ones, and then come up with ideas that kind of keep both of those in mind.
Yeah, exactly. So it can analyze your top performing posts and identify what are the most common traits they have, linguistically, semantically, thematically, whatever. And you can identify, what the top criteria is, because you may have a hunch on, what really makes it tick. And then based on that, it will make its own decision. And it goes above and beyond that. Let's say travel agent, right? Travel agent that puts together itineraries based on your preferences. If it can work with another agent or a system that provides information about flights, building or hotels, or building itineraries at any particular city, they all can work together to really come up with a very detailed itinerary, all planned out, specific pricing, specific flights, cars, places of interest, all planned out for you. But so those agents can work with each other to accomplish the common goal that you set in front of them. And it could be like, plan a vacation to Europe for a week. Sure that it's, within my budget of this.
Yeah. I'm picturing, like, long-term have an ongoing sort of database of, like, DNA of yourself and your business or whatever topics you're interested in. And then just be able to give access to any agent that you or automation you choose to purchase, so you don't have to customize it so manually. Like, you just have all the information about your products, maybe, so when you get an SDR, you just give it access to that, and it's like that was the missing piece almost. Or if you get a content agent, you have all the information on your preferences in your business. That's kind of like that knowledge piece that's missing. So if you have like an ongoing brain of knowledge on yourself or your business that you could just immediately give access to and have a way to update, then it makes training or customizing agents, I feel like, so much easier in the long term if you're like, part of the world of purchasing agents for your business.
Sure, that's important. The agents that will eventually win, because right now we're not anywhere near a point in time when there are like agent wars, competitive agent wars for powering up various parts of organization and businesses. Yeah. We'll get there. Now, the agents that will eventually win are the ones that will be able to learn from either their own mistakes or learn from the results of their work. So if you are a content agent and you just write articles or write tweets, if you can self-instrument your own performance to really understand what pieces of content generated the best response, not just by the numbers, but really kind of understand why, those agents will continue getting better and better. It's just like with employees, right? Like if you hire a fantastic marketing person and they're just like really good, and finally they found their voice, they finally are able to generate content that connects with prospect customers, and they just like zero in on it and just keep making it better and better and better. You want your virtual employee to do the same. It's not far-fetched where that will happen.
How do you do that though? Like, I hate how, like, the problem I have with a lot of LLM stuff when I'm trying to get it to write copy for me or come up with ideas, it's not like a one and done thing. It's not like, give me an intro for this using this transcript, or give me what it never gives me exactly what I want. I always have to tweak things, say like, no, that's too cringy, or like, oh, that be less salesy and be more candid, whatever. I always have to explain the voice I want things to be in, or say, no, like, this is the structure I want, you're not focusing enough on this, or this flow is, or like, it's a lot of feedback that I always have to give to get what I want. So it's not, I mean, I'm only using, like, let's say ChatGPT, right? So it's not like it's a automated process. But if I was to use that, like, in my automation process, I couldn't rely on it to give me a good enough answer every single time, because currently I'd still have to give it feedback and edit what it's giving me. So how do you train something like that?
Did you notice that as time goes on and you're staying in the same chat and you're just
it gets better, yeah.
It gets better. But sometimes it forgets about
yeah, it's so annoying. Like, I'll give it like so much information to base some decision on, and it'll give me one thing. I'm like, okay, no, change this. And then suddenly it doesn't reference the initial information properly anymore. It's like it changes the source material in its memory or something, even though it's right there.
Even if you just like say, just write it down, like, remember this for forever, that this is the rule. It's like, got it. Never again. But it's like, and then it will be just as apologetic as one can be for missing. So it happens. I think it's one of the things that will get better, right? I'm pretty sure it will get better. It's once you tune it to maintain a specific voice and delivery and style, it will continue doing that. And that's something that would have to change in the LLMs themselves. And they're proving them very rapid. For your automations, it would have to be a matter of really tuning it. Like, if you really care, and a lot of people would care about the actual voice, because your corporate identity needs to have consistent voice that is in line with your image perception, with how you want to be seen. So that's really, then it comes down to, tuning that automation with modifications to the prompts, where it will attempt to deliver the best possible result that you expect. But those things where it just slips will happen. So if you really care about having it top notch every single time, there will be more work for you, whether you are the actual content manager, business owner, whatever, to put moderation in place, where you either inject those tweaks yourself, or you keep going to your automation and regenerate this until you believe it is perfect.
Yeah, I think there's some level of QA that needs to be in place if it's going to be posted publicly. Like, if you just, I guess it really depends. Like, for a bakery, it might not be as difficult to generate tweets or content for, because it's a more generic topic that is easy to write about. Everyone loves treats, But if it's a more technical problem or more polarizing topic, then maybe you don't want to just let it post things freely without any oversight as to the tone or the message, because there's a reputation at risk.
If it is sensitive, I would not really trust AI to go unmoderated. Then it could be trouble.
Yeah. Is there a way to have more transparency into why it did something a certain way. Like if maybe a lead was skipped in an automation, or someone got a follow-up twice, or like something went wrong, but like it's hard to catch those things. Is there any preventative measures or extra steps that could help mitigate those?
Well, the fall throughs you specified would to me sound like it would be a problem in the actual automation algorithm. Like if someone got a fall twice, it's something that was not thought through in the automation algorithm itself. If something was skipped, again, that is a problem in the automation itself. Knowing when it happens, it would be a function of the actual tool to provide the analytics for the executions of your automation. Some tools are really good. Some tools are very mediocre in terms of being transparent on how individual things ran, where the time was spent, what the input and output parameters were, how the decisions were made. The more visibility you get, the better off you will be with that tool. In our system, you get a detail down to every single execution. So if you have an automation and it started, let's say it starts when an email is received, and then it processes that, you will know exactly how much time was spent on every single block, whether it resulted in an error, what the parameters, input parameters were, what the output parameters were, what the information was passed on, and so on. So you'll be able to see exactly what's going on in it. And I believe it is quite important. In others, it's going to be more of a black box where it's like resulted in an error, or it's, interrupted. God knows why.
Yeah.
Of course, that the end users do not benefit from that.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a really big factor for people in the future, especially as like things move forward. If you don't have that transparency and it's a black box, that's why McDonald's is successful, because it's consistent. Like you go there,
Yeah.
and the hamburger is going to taste the same every single time. Fries are going to taste the same. It's like turnkey franchise. Everywhere it's always the same. But if you know that there's a restaurant where sometimes it's really good, but then every once in a while you get food poisoning, you're not going to go there.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Going back to the being able to QA it, being able to tune it, that's very important, especially when it's related to content or some kind of outreach. And as I mentioned, my observation is that the majority of what's being talked about, it's either in content marketing or in sales development, and both relate to having something being delivered to either a specific individual prospect or mass in general.
What's like the thing to focus on now then? Maybe there's something that people are overlooking that they could get a lot of benefit from giving a little bit more attention to stand out or to create better products.
People who build automations, my hope is that they will start thinking about automation as the product rather than their time as the product. Because once they start building better automations, the ones that are more encompassing, the ones that are more universal, I think they will find that they can actually generate more money and provide more service to their communities by doing so. Because otherwise, they're just creating a bunch of noise rather than signal in the world of junk that is being hitting you whenever you log into TikTok or go to Reddit. There's a lot of junk. And unfortunately, it just creates so much noise that cutting through it to signal is going to be becoming very hard. So every one of those, and it's the same thing was happening with when no code started becoming a big thing. All those bubblers, that cult was just unstoppable, loud mouths that cannot tell the difference between a vector and a linked list. We're talking about like PhDs of computer science because they built a form that can submit data and store it in a database. Shut the hell up. This is what I say. Look, you're not a coder. Like, if you say you're no coder, it has nothing to do with computer science and engineering. Okay? Very similar thing is going on right now with the automations, because people figured out how to connect two blocks in N8N and then put AI in there, and all of a sudden they think that they're automators. They have no idea how a specific line of business that they are addressing actually works. No clue. So they're doing huge disservice by creating that noise that they try to sell simply because hoping that someone's going to hire them to build an actual automation. I just get very passionate when things like this, because some people spend years studying computer science and actually do a really good job at it without having a TikTok account.
I think people can tell though, and that's the crazy thing, is you can tell when something is like BS. Like you see a video and it's like just complete garbage automation. Like I've seen a guy who looks like he's 14. He's like, guys, look, I just asked ChatGPT to give me instructions for how to build this automation in N8N. And then look, here it is. And then everyone's roasting him in the comments. So like clearly people know what's garbage and what's not. But then the thing is, when you're actually making, like, it's like you see the problem, but then you literally replicate that exact thing when you're making videos now because it's all you see. Like you can tell when someone is actually aware of what they're talking about and has the evidence to back it up. But for some reason, it's so rare that maybe people think that's not what sells or that's not what gets attention. So they just go for the thing that gets attention, and which by coincidence is the worst possible type of content for actually providing value.
It's everywhere. Right before this call, Reddit sent a notification. A guy, literally, I'm reading from the title. I built an AI marketing team that actually works. Here's what it can do. So it goes like this and this and this. And then he starts spelling things out. And he says, for images, I typed in, and he gives the prompt. For this, so it's actually just like he shares specific prompts that gave him the results. There is no marketing team. There is nothing that it just works out of the box. He literally was just experimenting with various tools like OpenAI image stuff, Runway for video preparation, 11 Labs for sound effects. So it's like a hodgepodge of multiple tools, which each generated something. But getting a problem solved as a team, once you get to the bottom of this post, there's none of that. And by the way, it came out over the weekend. Cornell University, they did an experiment where they created a fictitious software company. They actually put together a website called The Agent Company. I think it's with dashes maybe. Yeah, the-agent-company.com. theagentcompany.com. Where they had a product manager, a software engineer, a QA man, like various roles, all assigned to AI agents. And they were supposed to work together to do specific tasks that were assigned to them. Okay. And then various agents in different roles. And it's like a scientific, I think peer-reviewed study. There's like a whole PDF on their website. And various LLMs were assigned to different agents to do this. Okay. The agent that managed to accomplish the most tasks successfully was powered by, I think, OpenAI, and then managed to accomplish a whopping 24% of their tasks. And 24% were successful. That's the highest number. Everybody else were shorter than that. So in essence, it was like a major fail, like epic, of AI agents working together.
Yeah. And that's like best case.
Yes. One of the agents, and they were given access to a desktop where they could just click through. One of them got stuck on a pop-up that was blocking the actual window, and he had no idea how to dismiss it. Therefore, he could not accomplish the majority of things that he needed to do. Here, the guy created a whole marketing team. He knows more than people at Cornell University, I think.
That's the problem, is it creates so much confusion in the industry with what is actually achievable. Because if you're making claims like this, it's just clickbait, but it's so frustrating because then you don't actually know where the bar is. Is it even possible to make a marketing team or not? Because you'd have no idea based on what you're finding.
I think it is possible. First of all, you either need to have someone who actually does marketing stuff and understands all the in and outs, all the complexities, all the dynamics, or actually do this thing yourself in multiple roles. Because it is not just, understanding how HubSpot works. There's a lot more to that. So all of these posts is just people massively rickrolling everyone without actual, video and click-through. But
is there any value you found in the school communities that was worth actually joining?
Not yet. But I'm actually thinking of starting a community with one simple thing, post the actual automation you would like to see, and I'm going to do it and actually show you how that works, rather than like shoving it in your face, like, look what I did. It's going to be like more of a demand driven, but it needs to be simple. That's the thing that I'm hesitating, is people are going to be like, I want, someone who just like wakes me up in the morning, walks through the day, does my job, and just, sings lullaby at night. Forget about it, dude.
Yeah, I think the only value I could really describe from these communities right now is actually teaching how to use the tools, because that's good information. But you could find that kind of anywhere. There's like a million YouTube videos on that. But I guess if it's about the automations, it's harder to find actually good automations in any of these, because they're all kind of copying each other too.
Yeah. And then the same people are cross-posting their stuff across communities without even modifying the copy. Like, same message is being reposted everywhere.
Well, school in itself is a business model. Like, if it's a paid community, especially, like, they get money. And there's also incentives for having larger communities. Like, I know Alex Hormozy, he is a shareholder, I guess, in school, and he had like a thing where the top few school communities can fly out and see him and like have a workshop or something. I don't know, or like they win a Cybertruck. Like, there was all sorts of stuff to get attention on school and get people using it. So I don't know if that's going on still, but yeah, school has a big incentive to get people on the platform as well. Maybe not as much to moderate what's actually on there.
Yeah, so far I have not found a whole lot of substance. I see community organizers just relentlessly pitching their stuff, especially in the free communities.
Yeah.
They're just like spam machines.
I think the paid ones might have better stuff, because there's not as much need to pitch if you're already paying to be in there.
Yeah, they're pitching hard.
That's how it goes. Okay. Well, I think that was a good amount of information we've parsed through today. So thank you again.
My pleasure.